Welcome to the Merick N.H. Ulrik podcast. This is episode 3, and I have voiceover artist Andrew Kydd with me. So let's get started. Andrew Kydd is a voiceover artist. He has come from the northeast of England and now is living in London. Andy has spent the last few years breaking into acting. After various projects in physical acting, he is now using his love of storytelling and character creation in voice acting for sci-fi and fantasy audio narration. And this is a prediction by Merick N.H. Ulrik. You will hear Andy Kydd in your voiceover audiobooks and video games in the not-too-distant future. So let's welcome voiceover artist Andrew Kydd. Here he is. All right, let me unmute here. Andy, can you hear me? Nope, it's still muted. Now that was a problem. Okay.
There you go.
Unmute. There you go.
Oh, hello.
All
Good
right.
evening.
We got you live, and it is afternoon here in the United States,
Evening,
and it
good
is
afternoon. Good night.
England in the UK. All right, and that's the beauty of this. We can talk. We can talk live, and we're on 2 different continents tonight. So this is pretty exciting. So
it's a beautiful world we live in.
Andy, I'm so glad to have you on the show. A little background: we got in contact with each other because Andy is doing voiceover. He's doing the narration for The Wolf Rider, and I'm so excited. He's so far doing a great job, and I think it's a huge task. Honestly, it's a big task because it's a full novel, and I think he's very brave to take on such a big role, and he's doing a great job. So, Andy, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, that's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. So, Andy, I wanted to ask, let's get the elephant out of the room, right out of the gate, okay? Are you related to Captain Kydd, the pirate?
No, it's a slightly different spelling. So that's K-I-D-D, and mine is K-Y-D-D.
But how do we know your answers might have changed it, so they weren't accustomed?
That's very true. Going back. So it's actually a Scottish surname. It's related to Clan Donald, which is the biggest clan in Scotland. It's a very old kind of Celtic, Scottish kind of surname.
I'm going to bring this out here. Look at this.
Lovely, yeah.
Our listeners cannot see this, but I got the Scottish clans and tartans, and so my ancestry is Cunningham, so it's in here. So what was yours? Douglas? Dougal?
MacDonald. MacDonald's my family clan. So my dad's side of the family is Scottish heritage.
Well, is it MacDonald of Sleat or MacDonald of Clan Renald? See?
Ooh.
Or
I need to get my hands on that book.
Of Glengarry. Okay, you know, the interesting thing about Glengarry. My pronunciation of my... Okay, it's probably terrible, so please forgive me, okay? But I know the Cunningham clan is in here, but the MacDonald... There's several MacDonalds in here.
It was the largest, most powerful clan in Scottish history is the MacDonald clan, so that's my small claim to fame, I suppose.
Yeah. There's I guess I'm going to guess 5 different factions of MacDonald's in this book here. So I that's very interesting.
All right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I do love Scottish history because I don't know a lot about it, but my uncle did an ancestry trace thing on the my here. Oh, God, I don't want to break the third wall, but I mean, I have I'm an Ulrik, Merick N.H. Ulrik, of course. That's my real name, of course, but my ancestry is Cunningham, so go from the Cunningham lineage.
Sure.
So the Cunninghams go back to, I guess my uncle traced it back to. Well, this is what he says. What they said they did to the Cunninghams of what was it? Now I can't even think right now. But it was a castle, and it was the Earl of Glencairn, I think. I'm not sure. So, anyways,
that sounds about right.
And apparently the Scottish, the Cunningham family crest is fork over fork, and their history, I guess, is like saving the Bruce. Oh, the lore of it is that they saved the King of Scotland, the first King of Scotland, under a haystack. So they have fork over fork, and they hit him in a haystack. So that's kind of fun. And also some lore that I heard of is that the Bruce that. One of the legends I heard is that the Cunninghams lost their castle to gambling debts. So it sounds about right.
that would make sense. That's a good link.
Sounds about right. I think that I probably am related to those people.
Yeah, that's where my love of storytelling comes from, because there's all the ancient history that my dad is absolutely fascinated and has always been fascinated with. So growing up, he would take me. We would go and visit Scotland quite a lot, and he would take me road trips to different lochs and all the glens and through the islands, and telling little stories here and there of different whether it was historical characters or mythical characters, ancient creatures, and all the Celtic legends and everything. So from a very early age, my dad was a big factor in kind of leading me down this path towards kind of fantasy and storytelling.
Yeah, I think the whole stories of Tolkien were written because he said he wanted to create a legendary thing for England, I guess. And you put Scotland in there with England, maybe that's a totally different ancestral lore, the British and the Scottish, but yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. I would love to travel there, and so hopefully I can sell a lot of audiobooks, a lot of ebooks, so I can get me a passport and travel.
Absolutely.
I would totally love to. Totally love to.
Yeah,
and
I'll show you.
Great.
Yeah. Let me know if you make it over. I'll show you around. We'll have a little trip.
We'll get a pint and some fish and chips for sure. I don't know if that's a British thing.
Haggis, the Scottish haggis, neeps, and tatties is the.
Okay, I've heard of haggis, but I have no idea what it is. So I think the only time I've heard about it was on that movie. So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers.
Yeah,
haggis.
Yeah, if you've got a weak stomach,
I'm down for anything. I have a pretty good. I'm pickled because I drink too much, so I feel like my stomach has been tortured enough. It's not afraid of anything. So tell me,
everything deep fried as well.
Oh yes, it's wonderful. I definitely want to come. I'd love to take a tour of the countryside and everything else. So tell me, Andy, what got you into acting? First of all, I know your background's in acting. You have a love for acting, and what got you into that? How long have you been into that? And what before we get into voice acting, what got you into acting, man?
Well, I've classic class clown situation. I've always been the kind of guy who likes to entertain, likes to be funny guy, air quotes funny guy. As much as possible, not to take life too seriously, which is what led me into a job in hospitality, really, because it's a fun job. You get to meet people every day. My background is mainly for the last 15, 16 years, I've been working in bar management, restaurant management, which is kind of I used to do a lot of cocktail making masterclasses, so people would come in with their birthday parties or their bachelorette party, as we call them, hen parties, and they learn how to make cocktails, but whilst getting very, very drunk. And there was a bit of showmanship involved. I can do a little bit of the flair where you juggle bottles around and things like that. So there's been a slight showmanship element to my job. I've always been kind of fascinated by acting. I'm a big movie nerd, big TV and film nerd. It was actually a friend from Australia was staying over in London during the 2020 lockdown. He came up to London from Australia in 2019 to pursue acting. And then the lockdown happened. Obviously he couldn't, but whilst I got to know him just before the lockdown, we kind of stayed in touch and saw each other as much as possible. And he basically set me on the path. He persuaded me, he persuaded me to pursue acting. I would speak about it all the time, and he just made it what was a dream and a far-field fascination. He made it more realistic, like it could actually happen. So I set up various profiles on various different websites and just put myself out there. Did a little biography of myself, and just started applying for different things. And none of it was I've never been interested in the payment side. I've never been very money focused in my life anyway.
Right.
And a couple of opportunities came my way, just student situations, small things. You get a little bit of exposure, you meet the right people, you speak to the right people, and a small snowball effect starts happening. And so it's kind of gone from there. Nothing major yet, but I've had a few little opportunities, and it's just an exciting journey that I'm very much at the start of. I'm 34 years old, but I didn't start going down this path since I was about 31. So yeah, I've still got plenty of time to, transition from the job that I'm doing now into something more creative.
That's awesome. And I think, like your friend who got you kind of inspired, I think that thinking big is really a good thing. Like, you have to think big, because I think a lot of times we get pigeonholed into whatever reality or life that we are dealing with. And so a lot of times we're just conditioned to think small, like, and you got to understand, like, there's so many opportunities out there. What I've found living in a small town in Texas is that you can't really go along with what everyone thinks in your general circle, because you'll find that, in my opinion, familiarity, I don't know if I said that right, familiarity breeds contempt. And so even though people might like you, they might be your friend, they might be your buddy, but they only see you a certain way. A lot of times they just, maybe because they're not going further into some kind of creative dream of some kind, they just don't feel like it's possible for you. But that's not the case. I feel like you have to keep an open mind and a bigger picture. And for me, I think it's
absolutely.
Like getting out of my ordinary environment has helped me a lot. I'm not saying that, I'm just you have to have the imagination first. You have to have the imagination that it's possible that you can do it, and that you
have to have a bit of belief in things, just a little bit of hope that things can go the right way. And my friend, shout out Adam. Adam is the guy from Australia. He just kind of he didn't give me any big speech or any big buzzing, go and get him kind of thing. He just through talking day by day, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. As I was having discussions, little light bulb moments and jigsaw puzzle pieces falling into place of, actually, I could just go on this website. Star Now is one that I use, and I can go on this website and apply for this. And I can put some, and then for example, one of the things that came up was get headshots free. So I applied, and somebody came back and said, we'll take you for some free headshots. So I got some free headshots, which can cost up to hundreds of pounds sometimes. And so that one puzzle piece in place, and then speaking to one person got me a job with somebody else, and just making these connections. So it's just being scared to put yourself out there if there's something that you really want. Just give it a try. And the worst that somebody can do is turn around and say, not today, or you weren't quite ready, but if you work on this or work on that, you might be able to come back. But I think coming to this job and this possible career a little bit later in life has maybe helped me as well, because I feel like I'm mature enough to deal with rejection as well as triumph as well now. So I feel like I can kind of, if something maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if I tried to apply for something and I really in my head was wanting a certain role or a certain situation, maybe I wouldn't have dealt with it so well, and maybe that would have stopped me dead in my tracks. But now I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and maybe more mature. I can kind of take rejection as well as and I know I've got a career to fall back on. So money's, again, like I said before, money's not an issue, or money's not something that I have to worry about whilst I'm building a career for myself in an acting realm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think sometimes you have to have you have to have a little bit of a, as you get older, we get wiser. And I know one of my passions is music, and so like I found that I added that to my life, and maybe like a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and moderate depression, but I don't feel like I don't have anxiety anymore right now, and I don't have the depression because I just added one thing to my life that I really love doing, and that's playing music. So even though I haven't made any money off that passion, it still is, I don't know, it's just good for my mental health to be doing something that I love. So it's
absolutely.
It's really helped me. So I think that sometimes as we get older, you know, maybe there's acceptance. We maybe accept if we can learn to accept ourselves and our situation where we are, and not judge ourselves so harshly. Not be like, well, you should have been somebody by the time you were 30, or you should have been you should have had this. You should have already made your first movie when you're 25. You know, just enjoy the ride, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that's it. I think society's too quick to put specific milestones in place for you should have, like you said, achieved X by Y. Yes. But I always go back to there's a list somewhere online of famous people who were a certain age by the time they did their first thing in their field. Morgan Freeman's always the one that stands out for me. I don't think he was in his mid-50s before he made his first movie. So, you know, just because you haven't found out what you want to do, like I said, I'm 34 and I've only just kind of figured out what I want to do.
Well, Willie Nelson is one of my favorite artists, and you may or may not like him. He's a country western singer.
Oh, absolutely,
Texas. And he didn't really have his first hit till he was 45. Now, he was writing songs for like Patsy Cline and stuff like that, but nobody saw him as a performer. And it's so funny to look at pictures of him from like the 1960s and 1960s. Then you look at him in the 80s, and he was already got gray hair and everything, and he was still just lighting it up. And you know what? He's now the oldest living performing artist. I think he's in his 80s, late 80s, performing. So that's pretty awesome. Well, let's talk about.
Yeah, it's never too late.
Yeah, it's never too late. Let's talk about voice acting, because I want to tell you something. We auditioned a lot of different narrators, and I have several pen names, and I auditioned some. And you are very talented. You have a very good, skilled voice. You have a good imagination. I mean, we could go in this. We could talk about a lot of different things. We could talk about your love for sci-fi and fantasy, because I have the same thing. Love of video games and things. But your voice acting skills. So obviously, you have a creative imagination to come up with these voice characters, and The Wolf Rider is a challenging book to write because it has so many characters, and it is it's a full novel. I believe it's at or almost or over 100,000 words, and that puts it as a solid novel length. So it is a project, and I feel like I'm very excited that you're committed to doing that, because that is one of those tasks that's not going to be done in a week. It's going to take some time, and I'm very confident, too, because I think your level of enthusiasm, I know you'll do a fantastic job and you won't give up. And that's going to take some determination to finish, you know?
Well, I'm loving the story. I read, when you very first sent me the full manuscript, I skimmed through. My main focus was to, when I very first got the manuscript, was to figure out how many characters there was, and kind of, I don't know if you've counted. I have. There are, I think, if I remember correctly, not including the soldier or the villager, the unnamed characters, there are 46 named characters in the book, I believe.
I guess that's a lot. I like. I'm not Brandon Sanderson length, but it is that, I guess so. And that's what I say. The difficulty level of that, and I love how you voiced the main character so far. Fantastic, and I can't even wait to I'm enjoying listening to my own book. And this is my first novel, so I did some revisions, but to my own shame, I got started and I didn't know how to write when I first got started. I mean, I could write, but during the pandemic, I actually got started in 2020, and I couldn't really afford to hire a regular editor, so I edited a lot of my books myself, and I really should have figured out a way to hire an editor, because sometimes when you're writing something down, you read it the way you thought it in your head, and you're not even reading it correctly. And other people, and as you can see, I was looking at some of my reviews on that book, and if you go to Amazon and you look at some of the reviews of The Wolf Rider, you'll see that like they're very most of them are very positive, and then you'll get some that are just like, oh, the editing was terrible. I'm just saying there are so many grammar mistakes. But you got to understand, like, I had not been a writer my whole life. I didn't even know I could do this. You know what I'm saying? I started, I was like ready. I mean, they say ready, aim, fire. I was fire, ready, aim. That's pretty much
Yeah.
Like, let me just go. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, I should learn grammar. Oh, that's something that's important for people to read the story and not be confused. So I guess my main gripe is when reviewers don't finish the book and then give me a 1-star review. Other than that, like, I can honestly, honestly, I can deal with the fact. But so we did some editing to that. But it's a great story. We've got if you read some of the reviews, very positive, kind reviews, 4 and 5-star reviews, and so it has 12 reviews and it has a 4-star rating, and that's with maybe the 1-star review. So that's not too bad. So, yeah, it's okay, but it's all good. And it was a challenge to write that novel because in the middle parts of the book, I kind of got stuck and I kind of got bogged down. But by the end, I was so happy. Sylvester Stallone, we don't think of him as a writer. We think of Rocky, Sylvester Stallone and Rambo. But he actually wrote Rocky 1, and I believe he wrote Rambo First Blood. And it's funny because he says that writing is the most miserable, lonely work a person can do. It's kind of a dismal, you put just cover the windows and don't let anybody come over. But I don't know.
It's just that thing of just you've got the story and the words in your head, but until you actually get them out into the world, you don't really know
if it's any
if
good.
It even makes sense. So you have to just kind of get it out and see what happens. And
a lot of times you have a beginning and an end, and the middle part is where it's difficult. So, but it's a great story, and I hadn't
people interested.
hadn't revisited it in a while, and I'm really enjoying revisiting it with your audio narration. Okay, I was going to try to do this. I don't know. Let's go ahead and we're gonna pause right here, and I want to listen to some excerpts of The Wolf Rider, and then we can talk about it. We're gonna listen. We're gonna come right back. Andy and I are going to listen to some of the Wolf Rider, and then we're going to talk about it. And I might show edit for the podcast a clippage. That's not the right word. A little bit of a sample, a short sample for our podcast listeners, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording, and then we are going to listen. Now, if you get disconnected, just pop right back on, and we'll listen to it. Okay, here we go. We'll be right back.
Her eyes transfixed on the source of the light. Cautiously, she moved towards them. The stones appeared to have a shiny glass surface and were magnificent to look upon. They radiated an aurora that filled the whole room. Aileen could not stop herself from plucking one from the pile. Looking closer into the green glass, she peered into the depth of an emerald world. It reminded her of the skies at night in their glory, a universe of life. She imagined a humming of harmonic voices. It resonated in her mind as if a whole village of people were outside singing to her.
What are you doing in this chamber, human girl?
A harsh voice echoed in her head as it broke the melody. Pulling her eyes away from the beauty of the stone, she felt the presence of someone, but could not see them.
This is a sacred room, not for the eyes of any but a Mawali.
So, I'm made to live among the humans alone? Questioned Eliza. His face turned down and looked solemn. Go find an elf peasant from the western forest and mate with her, said Lord Aldreus. I can understand your struggle, but I must think of the good of my people. We will still allow you to trade with our village. Bring your furs once a year. We will trade equitably, but there is one thing I would consider. What? Asked Eliza, his chin turned up. Well, said Aldreus slowly, you could give me Shattergar. I would consider it a reconciliation for your family's offences in mixing with humans. You speak of traditions, said Eliza, his eyes glimmering fiercely, but you would strip me of my heritage, even if I would give you Shattergar, which I shall never do. Even then I could not. It is bound to the Embaden family to the end of our line, and I will not see it end in my lifetime. For Velazar, called Aldreus, looking nervous, even threatened. A young noble-looking elf appeared from behind the trail, running to catch up. "Good day, Master Umbaden. I will see you next season."
All right, we're back, and I just got to say, like, I love what you're doing with the Wolf Rider. I love how you voiced
Thank you.
Eliezer Umbadin, and it's so funny because, like, they say writing is a lonely work sometimes, but it's not quite lonely because you're writing, you're surrounded by these characters that are larger than life, and so you're bringing them to life, you know.
Yeah, sure.
These characters that I'm so fond of, that it's so wonderful to hear them come to life, actually, with voice narration. I just love what you did. You said that when we had our little break, you said that you used Aragorn as inspiration for voicing Eliezer, and I never thought about that, but he is kind of a ranger, just like Aragorn was. He's like an outcast of his line and everything. So I think you did a good job. How did you come to that conclusion to use Aragorn?
Well, I think literally the word ranger just sparked that in my mind. That's how we meet Aragorn for the first time,
right?
But with I found the elf mix quite kind of interesting as well, and being kind of from that same area as Lord Aldreus as well, but kind of might have spent a bit of time away, so didn't quite sound exactly the same, but sound similar in terms of diction and how he spoke, but tried to kind of make slight subtle changes. But one of the funnest parts of this process is the conversations between two characters, when you've got one you know, two or even three characters talking at the same time and kind of darting between them. But the beautiful part about the editing process, which I do, is I can kind of stop and take a breather and reread for the third time and make sure I got it right, and then go into the editing process and cut all those little breaths out. So when you hear it, hopefully, if I've done my part correctly, you won't know that there's any. It'll just seem like one seamless conversation.
Yeah. So I think your technical, what I have heard, the quality level of your production level is really good. And so I like right now on my internet is lagging a little bit. So even if you hear any kind of distortion or lag at all, it's probably because my internet is lagging right now. But your production levels are very high. I think they're good because I have worked with other narrators, and I've seen I'm not trying to downgrade anybody, but I have seen various levels of production quality. I think you're doing great. I mean, everyone can always learn and improve, but I think you're doing a great job on the production level. I had originally had the idea was, because my background is music, is that I would just write these books and record the audio narration myself. I think I have delusions of grandeur, that I'm a pretty creative guy, but when I actually tried to do even just a simple narration, I realized the complexity of the quality level that ACX requires, and just when you start to listen to the playback, you know, like you say, like you know, when you're breathing or if you mispronunciate a word, it takes a level of concentration too to go from character to character, and you know, not get frustrated. I think it's a skill in itself. Like, you can be a writer, that's fine, that's a skill. Or you can be an actor even, and then be a voice narrator. But in this world that we live in, you are also a production house. You are basically being a studio in yourself, and you're the talent, and you're the studio. So you're wearing a lot of hats, and it is a full production. That's a skill to learn. It's a lot of work. Yeah,
we've even got the. I don't think it's giving too much away to say there's a form of communication in the book where they speak kind of almost telepathically.
Yes, in the story.
So there's adding effects to that to kind of make it obvious that that's what's happening. So playing around with that a little bit, I think we've had a bit of a discussion about that and how to make it sound obvious that it's this telepathic mind speak, but also not to have it too jarring. So that you can actually understand what they're saying as well.
Yeah, so I mean, really, there is like, so there has to be a distinction between the mind speak and regular speak, so you know what's going on. But I think this production is going to be awesome. I think really, so I have it up here. This is a 10.5 hour audio work. So if you put that in perspective, that is almost as long, I will say not as long, as the studio versions of all three Lord of the Rings, not the extended editions, but the studio movies. Okay, that's a long. That's a long production. That's on average 3 hours a piece. If the Lord of the Rings were like 3 hours a piece, and then one was 3.5 hours. That is, or 2 or 3.5 hours. That is like exactly the length of the Jackson trilogy of the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that's a long.
Hopefully,
work.
I can keep people interested enough. But it's a great story, lots of twists and turns. So I'm sure that won't be an issue.
Like I would say, just enjoy it and don't get under pressure to finish it too fast.
Yeah.
I feel like the good thing about this is when it's done, it'll be done forever, and we'll have it forever. It'll be out there forever. Yeah. We can always go back and enjoy it. So, and another thing too is like once you're done, you're done. You're probably not going to come back and re-record this ever. So just take your time and you don't want to.
On to the next one.
Yes, on to the next one. But it's going to be great. I'm really so excited about it. Okay, so as I talked to you earlier, I'm working on another project. I am helping and assisting in a ghostwriter position for a book called The Ninja Girl, okay? And so this is it's a story about a musician who meets a girl and they fall in love immediately, and then he wonders like, what's going on here? Why is this girl falling for me? She's a beautiful woman. And so he obviously thinks there's got to be something wrong with her. And so his first initial reaction is thinking, well, maybe she's addicted to drugs and she's a drug addict and she's wanting to change her life. But they said, no, wait, what if she's a ninja assassin and she's trying to change her life? So it's a ninja assassin. This guy meets this ninja assassin unaware that she's a ninja assassin and falls in love with her. And that's what the story's about. And also her trying to get out of the ninja guild because you can't just easily walk away from a ninja clan.
No.
So she's got to fight her way. She's got to fight her way out of the ninja clan, or die, basically.
Yeah.
So, so we're gonna do this one more time. We're gonna pause, and then we're gonna talk about the Ninja Girl. I want your opinion on the song, but just keep in mind that it is only a demo. This is not the finished song. So when the project The Ninja Girl is done, it's going to be a book, it's going to be an audio book, it's going to be a graphic novel, and it's going to be a world-class, radio-ready single. So it's going to have electric guitar, drums, and everything in there. But right now, it is just a demo. This is for the producer, so we're not showing this to the general public because it is just a demo. But that's in the future coming out, and I think there's going to be a Kickstarter for that. So I probably will share it on my podcast when they get the Kickstarter. But I want your opinion on this. So we're gonna do the same thing we did just a minute ago, and we're going to pause this real quick, and we're going to listen to this, and then I want Andrew Kydd's professional opinion, and I don't want you to lie and say you like it if you don't, but that's okay. Okay,
I'll be honest.
I'll just edit
Far
that.
Away.
I'll edit this whole thing out if you don't like it. I'll just be like, this never happened. Okay, all right. But I want to hear your for real. Be honest. But let's go ahead. We're gonna pause right now, and we're gonna listen to the song, and then I want Andy's opinion on the song. Okay. And I don't even know what kind of music you like, so this is not even really okay. Hold on, here we go. All right. So that was the Ninja Girl. Again, it's that version of it is the demo version, and like I was telling Andy off camera, the guitar part I wasn't used to playing in the studio, so a little backstory. It's at 144 beats per minute, and I try to play with a click. If musicians know, you in studio you play with a click track to stay on beat, and I wasn't practicing that song to the click, so I had to pull there's a tendency in musicians to speed up when they feel emotional, and so like on the chorus, it's a typical thing a lot of musicians struggle with. I sped up, and so to keep myself on beat, I had to really pull back what I normal intensity. So the variation of it, I listen to it, it sounds kind of terrible in parts, but it's a demo. It's a demo. So, but
I really liked it. Three bands sprung to mind straight away for me.
What was that again?
That it reminded me of. Three bands jumped to mind straight away. One of my favourite bands of all time, Tenacious D. It reminded me of a little bit. Say again, also a little bit.
I've had a little bit of a static here. I think it's my network is struggling a little bit. Say, what was that band again?
Tenacious
D. Yeah. It is. I can see that a little bit. It's kind of crazy.
And also, it reminded me a little bit of like maybe some of the slower Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, or Foo Fighters as well. That kind of acoustic rock kind of thing. But I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it with more instruments, the full band version.
It's just a demo. It's going to have full band with electric guitar and drums and bass and everything. But we had to create a demo.
Yeah, I could see Dave Grohl and Jack Black rocking out to that.
My favorite band is Queens of the Stone Age. That's one of my favorite bands, and I like them Crooked Vultures, which it has John Paul Jones, and it has Dave Grohl and Josh from Queens of the Stone Age. So it's really, really good. I love that. It's one of my favorite album.
I was the sad passing of Taylor Hawkins a few months back. I was able to go to the tribute concert at Wembley Stadium in London for that. So obviously an incredibly sad thing to have happened, but at the same time bittersweet, because I was there in the crowd seeing, as well as the Foo Fighters, seeing Brian May from Queen, who Queen is one of my childhood favorite bands of all time. So a little bit surreal seeing in that situation.
Wembley Stadium is a historic place of some of the hugest concerts, with Queen and everything.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In that in that arena, in that stadium situation, seeing the Foo Fighters and seeing Brian May from Queen and seeing all these huge rock stars that I've grown up listening to was quite surreal.
That's pretty awesome. Well, man, let's get back to talking about Andrew Kydd. I know we've kind of gone all over the place, and that's how I am. I'm very scatterbrained. Yeah. And so, like, a lot of times I might go from one subject to the next, but I had on my list to talk about, too. I noticed you have a love for video games along with science fiction. And, I mean, am I right? You're doing video game narration possibly in the future?
Yeah, so I'd absolutely love to. So I love playing video games. I'm terrible at video games. So your Call of Duties and the anything competitive, I'm no good at. I love and I prefer an open world story based game. So I've spent a lot of time at the moment playing Assassin's Creed. I play a lot of Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, the voice act. Any video game that you play and feels like a cinematic experience is my kind of thing. So anything, the Fallout,
okay, before you say any more, I want to tell you my favorite video game of the last 10 years. Or it's probably even older than that now. Dang it, it's old. But because I used to love to play video games as much when my children were younger. My son is 23 now, so he's right. We don't hang out and play video games anymore. That was a good time. But one of my favorite video games is Final Fantasy, and I love Final Fantasy 12. Did you ever play that game, Final Fantasy 12?
Right.
It has.
I've only played 7 and 8.
Well, 12 has one I think they redid. What do they call that? They called it the there's a new name for it. They called it the I can't think of the name right now. It was a horoscope. What's a horoscope? Another word for horoscope? I forgot what they called it. I forgot what they called it.
The star sign?
There was a name. There's some kind of a. I'll think of it later. But Final Fantasy 12 has some of the best cinematic scenes. Well, there's probably some that are better now.
Yeah.
But I love the storyline and the cinematic scenes. So we're talking about a video game, and I will say that it's amazing that that those are like movies that are interactive. Really, the video games.
Well, my first experience of that was going back to you playing video games with your son. When I was younger, my parents separated, but lived very close by. So on the weekends, I would go and stay with my dad. This is when I was maybe 7, 8, 9 years old. He would play every single weekend. He would play through Metal Gear Solid 1.
Which one?
So I would sit on the very first Metal Gear Solid.
Oh wow, Metal Gear Solid! Oh Snake. yes, I love those. Those were great.
So I would sit, and this was when I was as young as 8, 9, 10. Probably too young to be playing these games, but I would sit on the sofa, and he would play every weekend. I would go around. We'd have dinner, and then about maybe 7 p.m. settle in, and about 3-4 hours until I fell asleep. Would be watching my dad play Metal Gear Solid the same game every
that
weekend.
was a great game, and also taking getting personal, I guess. I did that with my son. We played a game called Dynasty Warriors, and it was like a combat game. Dynasty Warriors, and when my son was probably 4 and 5, where he's still a young kid, what I would do was I would soup up the characters, build up a character who's almost immortal level of and I let him play that, and I'd play an entry level because I can't remember which game it was. I think it was Dynasty Warriors 3. I think, I'm not sure which one, but a lot of those games you can build up your characters by every level you beat, you get stronger and stronger. So, and he got of course, Caleb, my son, is better at video games than me by far. I think he's he could probably play some tournaments for that. What's that one game? Baseball game. It's The Show. He's actually so good at that, and he's all into that.
Oh wow!
But I told him you should do a YouTube channel on video games for that, but he just has no desire to do that. So right now the only
there's more.
Go ahead.
Apparently, there's more money in the video game industry than the music and film industry combined.
And that project I was talking about, the Ninja Girl, before we broke, and This video is going to be multimedia. It's going to have a book. It's going to have an audio book. It's going to have a music single, and then it's going to have what we're working on right now. It's going to have a graphic novel attached to it. So it's going to be multimedia. But I come from a world of playing music. It's hard to break into acting. Well, music, you can do it. It's just hard to get paid for playing music. It's very difficult. And I would say 1% of recording artists make 99% of the money. It's just you have to get to that level. I would say maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's 5% make 95% of the money. It's just entry level, playing shows. And then there's the bands who play bars and they play covers and they're a working band. But as far as recording artists, recording your own music. So I do love all art, man. I love, that's why on my website, Merick N.H, I review video games. I talk about, my favorite video game series has been Final Fantasy. I talk about that on there. We talk about sci-fi movies, and this podcast will be put up on a page. Well, I'll probably do a short blog about you, sir, Andrew, about your narration, some links. So if people want to hire you, maybe for one audio book or for a video game narration, they'll basically, if you don't go to MerickNH.com, don't worry. You can go look him up on ACX. Just look up Andrew Kydd. Kydd is Kydd, I believe. Did I say it right? And so you should be able to find him on ACX. So if you have a published book already in the sci-fi fantasy genre that you want to pitch to Andrew, you can definitely just go on ACX and pitch him there. But of course, he's going to be busy on the Wolf Rider right now, so don't bother him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, that's all good. It's all good. But I mean, I really do feel like he will be a very sought after narrator coming up, because especially after this book, he's a very talented voice actor and creative. So
you make me blush.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
I haven't been spending a lot of time playing video games, but the one game that I play, and I want to tell you this, and it's hard to find players, is BattleTech. I play BattleTech. Have you heard of that? Yeah. It's a tabletop game. Yeah, nice. It's a strategy game. You can play it different ways. But being in rural South Texas, sometimes it's hard to find players, so I go to Houston or go to Austin to find players to play in tournaments or different campaigns and stuff like that. But I haven't been playing video games as of late, but I might start playing with my 8-year-old, and so we'll probably be playing some Mario Kart. That will be the level of video games.
Yeah, nice. Can't beat a bit of Mario Kart.
Yes. So, I mean, we've talked about a few things. We've kind of dashed around a little bit. I just want to say, I have dealt with, maybe not so much in the beginning of my writing, like whenever I started writing, I didn't know if I could write. And I think that, it's a matter of just getting started. I feel like everybody starts at some point. But I do feel like all of your creative ambition, like even like playing Metal Gear Solid with your dad, you don't realize a lot of people have the sponginess. The voice narration on Metal Gear Solid is amazing. They have all these cinematic points and different characters and stuff.
That's the whole thing that, it all starts with those influences way back that you don't necessarily realize at the time, kind of setting you on a certain path. But it was always the like I said, the cinematic element, the way you feel you're inside the video game. And looking back now, the graphics were terrible. But
at
for
the
my
time they seemed
brain,
amazing. Yeah,
however many years ago, it was like mind
yes,
blowing.
because I loved playing Final Fantasy VII, and that was on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
But if you go back now to the original Final Fantasy VII, not the remake that they did, the remake has amazing cinematics and amazing voice narration. But the original, we thought at the time the graphics for Final Fantasy VII was great back in the 90s, but you go back and you're like, golly, what's this primitive caveman stuff they're doing here?
Yeah.
But,
it makes you think what it's going to be like in another 10, 20 years' time. Is it going to
Yes.
just keep getting crazy? But, all the VR stuff, the virtual reality stuff that's getting bigger. And,
yes.
well, and, it's just going to keep expanding.
I was going to go back to the Metal Gear Solid memory you told me about your dad. I think I was just thinking about this. We never can tell the emotional impact a movie or a scene can have on you that inspires you, because when you know that, oh, this was impactful, this was cinematic to me, then when you're doing your work, you're like kind of passing it on to the next generation. You never know, like what, because
sure.
I think too, when you're older and you listen to things, maybe we don't soak up things as much as when we're younger. We soak up those memories, and that thing you realize kind of transfers. I don't know. I know. Recently, I went to a birthday party where a buddy of mine rented out a theater to play Empire Strikes Back. So I loved it. That's one of my favorite movies. But to see it on the big screen again was awesome. It was just so cool. It's just the scene, the storytelling, how they did it, and everything. You know. But it's awesome. So we've kind of gone around a bit. Is there anything we've forgotten to talk about on our show today? We talked about what got you into acting. Why sci-fi and fantasy? I love that genre. That's my favorite genre. But why sci-fi and fantasy, you think, is the genre that you like to work in?
I think because of the amount of different stories that is possibly out there. You're not just constricted to the world that we live in. You're constricted to moving in and out of the world that we live in, and all these different fantasies and different areas, and there's just a bigger scope for creativity and fun, darkness, humor, sadness. It's just something I've always been drawn to. Like I've always reading from very, very young age, fantasy and sci-fi books. My grandma got me into. She was always reading, giving me fantasy books. The author David Eddings was one that I read from very young. He created the whole world building element, and many different books are all linked to each other, which is something that yourself is very familiar with. I love that little. You might read a story and it has one character, and then you come back to a different book and it's got a whole arc from that character in it. So yeah, it's just the whole world building and the whole kind of taking the escapism from this world into another world is absolutely always been thrilling.
Yeah,
to me.
That's what I like too. I do like and I guess I started with the Brothers of Chaos series, and it just like the more I got going, I was like, well, what about the history of this? Where did this come from? So I kind of kept writing and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever thought about doing creating a language?
No,
like Tolkien or some of the
I
greats?
had put in some different, I guess in the weird world of Delantia, we have a different measuring system. It's ebbs, it's not feet or that.
Yeah.
But there's a few things I would probably try to put into the world building that are just unique to the world of Delantia and Valoria, but. I think I'm going to try to learn the English language before I try to create another language.
Yeah.
I'm down here in Texas, so I'm sure I probably say things the wrong way many times. So I'm trying to work on my grammar, my pronunciation. So I think it'd be a crime on humanity if I created my own language at this point. Probably it'd be.
Yeah. Well, the freedom's there. But that's even more time consuming.
Yep. Well, hey, it's been so great having you on,
Yeah.
Andy. I know we've had I don't know exactly how long we've gone because we've got about 3 different clips, but I know we've discussed many things, and I appreciate your time. I know it's probably about 8:30 at your time right now, or no, it's later than that. Probably
it's quarter past 9.
So I've kept you for over an hour, and I really do appreciate your time. I'm super excited about the Wolf Rider, and like I said, if you want to get a hold of Andrew Kydd, if you have a voice acting job for him, you might look him up on ACX. I know you can just search Andrew Kydd. Is there anywhere else that they might want to find you if they need to find you? Or
I'm also on Fiverr, Fiverr.com for smaller jobs. But yeah, I'm just in the process of building up my profile at the moment. I'm very new to it. I'm going to start my TikTok soon, where I'll be posting clips of the Wolf Rider and various other jobs. Nothing giving away any spoilers or any plot, so you'll have to buy the book for any major plot arcs. But just to give a little example of different characters and different voices that I'm going to be playing with. So yeah, it's very much a watch this space situation at the moment.
Awesome. Well, hey, you can go to MerickNHUlrik.com, and we'll have this. By the time this episode is aired, you'll have a blog post about Andy, and so you can check out some of his links and stuff. But yep, we so enjoyed having you, and if you enjoyed this podcast, you can support it by going buy me a coffee /Merick N.H. Ulrik, and we'll have links in the descriptions too. Like, just you can donate $5 or $2 to the show, just so it helps us keep funding projects. But anyways, thank you for being on the show, Andy, and I'm not going to keep you too much longer. It's been great. We'll definitely have you on probably in a couple of months when we got the Wolf Rider up, and maybe we'll talk about that. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on TikTok. So I have a little TikTok too, so maybe we'll share some stuff. So sounds great, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks a lot.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Merick N.H. Ulrik podcast. Next week, we have William K. Stidham, the artist most famous for his Sacred Heart series. It's a great talk, a great conversation. You're going to love it. I'll see you next week.